Hey y'all, Mike with Cardboard Kingdom. Welcome back to another Disney Lorcana video. Today we're going to be discussing the grading aspect of Lorcana. This post here on Reddit from Swaggy B got the juices going on the grading side of the house, and so I'm going to try and go like company by company and give my thoughts and you know who I still grade with, why I grade with them, etc. etc. Right now I do not have a subscription to any grading company. Now it just expired this month, and historically I've graded with every grading company. But PSA is still who I would grade with today if I had to do a submission, irregardless of this post here. So to start, we'll look at this. We see that this card was, hypothetically, a PSA 6 D23 Elsa that was broken out of their case, regraded, and it got bumped to a 10. Obviously, this should never happen, and this validates the grading is a scam community, which I vehemently disagree with. Encasing collectibles in plastic has been a thing for a very long time. It is not new to the card industry. It happens in comics, happens in coins and money, happens everywhere. Any collectible, this is a thing. Cards are not new, and so it being a scam is just patently false. Like, you're just in a different world if you think it's a scam. The market is willing to pay more for a gem mint collectible than they are a collectible that is a one. Having a third party authenticate that and give their grade gives it value. It's a worthwhile service. It's been around forever. If you think it's a scam, I'm sorry, it's not. So to get that out of the way, I do not think grading is a scam. I do think that there are cards that should not be graded, and we'll get into that with one of the grading or two of the grading companies here in a minute. And then it's worth noting as well, before I get too much into this rant, I do have a lot more like technical like grading guides on my channel of like, here's what I would grade, here's what I would avoid grading, here's the companies I would use in these instances versus, on these cards I'd go here. And so if you're looking for some of that, look at my catalog. I have a lot more detailed grading conversations and videos on that particular subject. Now, right now, despite this PSA 6 Elsa getting a 10, I would still be grading with PSA if I had to submit cards today, for many reasons. First and foremost, they're the most well-known name in all of card grading, right? Whether it's sports grading, TCG grading, etc. PSA cards are the most well-known and most widely accepted. If you go to a convention or anywhere else, you're going to see them. 90% of the collection is going to be PSA cards. They are the most accepted and valued by the community and market at large. And so me as a seller, if I want to sell a card, I want it to be a PSA 10 versus the other ones, because just the least amount of variance is going to happen within the PSA, just value of the ecosystem on the secondary market. In addition, while times like this happen, I've gotten grades like this where like my biggest Lorcana upgrade is a 7 to a 10. It was a Tinkerbell Enchanted from the first chapter. It got a 7. I looked at it, I'm like, this card is perfect. Like, I don't know what they saw, broke it out. It got upgraded to a 10. Now, it didn't get upgraded. I cracked it. They didn't know it got a 7 previously. And then it got regraded and got pushed to a 10, which was nice. But like, stuff like that just happens, and that's part of it with grading. Now, we'll get into tag, and a lot of people are going to say, well, tag, we need to have AI doing this in machines. Their system is far from perfect, and I'll get into that here in a minute. But if I had to grade cards right now, it would absolutely be through PSA. Despite the inconsistencies, it's the most widely known, the most widely accepted, and you're going to get historically the most value out of PSA consistently across the board. There's a bigger market for it, and so that's why I still reside with PSA. PSA is not perfect. I have had many grades like this where I've emailed them just infuriated. Like, hey, like, you tell me what's wrong with this card. I need to know right now because you gave me a 6 on a card that should be a 10. Like, this is absurd. Now, look, their customer service is terrible. As a as a company, I don't love PSA by any means. I have no love for any of these companies. I think they all have done sketchy things. If I had to grade, I would grade with PSA. Now we'll go to tag next. Tag is relevant because this person says, the top comment, man, grading by a person is such a scam. This shit should be done by machines by now. 6 to 10, same company, whole thing is absurd. Check out Tag. I love Tag labels, blah, blah, blah. I see Tag all over the place. I see him on Instagram. I see him on Twitter. I see him on Reddit. Tag is the next, big thing, if you will. There's been a lot of grading companies that have came and gone. Tag is the newest to kind of get some hype, if you will. Now, I find the whole thing incredibly manufactured. I don't think there's a lot of true organic support for Tag. I feel like they partner up with a lot of like content creators and done free submissions. I feel like they've got some sort of like organized social media push, whether it's bots or whatever. Like they're just everywhere, and it's not. It's way too much to be organic, in my opinion. That's my own opinion. I don't know that to be true, but it feels very inauthentic whenever I'm looking at it. Unauthentic, inauthentic, unauthentic. I don't know. I just had like a stroke. But so Tag as a whole, I that like the social media push, I just don't love. Now, I love the premise of I'm at my LGS for Arcasia's Island release. I pull an enchanted that I don't necessarily want to put in my deck, but I love it and I don't want to sell it right. I want to bring it home to my daughter, whatever. If I could just walk, they have a tag machine there. I can stick it in. It's $5. It's gonna grade it. It's gonna encase it. It's gonna spit it out the other side. I absolutely love that. And I hope in like 5 to 10 years, that is the future. And that is the standard that is set within this entire industry. I love that they're kind of pushing the envelope on the AI side of things. Now, why Tag is not touching my cards or my collection right now is if this is done by AI, then the cost per card should be cheaper. It just should. If I don't have to pay, or if you don't have to pay for labor on the business side of things, that should be reflected on the consumer side of things. And it's not. Tag is just as expensive, if not more expensive, than every other card grading company. And I don't like that. I don't like the idea that no one's even putting labor into these cards. You're going into a machine, being spit out, and the cost is the same or higher. That doesn't sit well with me. And so that's one piece. It should just be cheaper, in my opinion. Secondly, the software is not ironed out right now whatsoever. There have been a lot of cards that have gotten tins that have indentions on them or dents on the side. And so there's a lot of these, tag tins that are not truly tins. And I think it's really going to become a thing where, right now the market doesn't value a tag tin as much as like for a PSA 10, for example. If you put them side by side, the PSA 10 is going to sell for more. And I think that that's an illustration of tag doesn't really have the hype that is behind them as it would appear on social media. Secondly, the software is not ironed out. These cards that are getting 10s, some of them are 10s, right? Rightfully so. Some of them are 9s, 8s, 7s, etc. But there are a lot of cards just like this where the human aspect of PSA, they gave it a 6. That person saw something that wasn't there, cracked out, got a 10, or the person who graded the 10 didn't see something that was actually on the card that the 6 saw, right? There's someone dropped the ball there. That happens with the software right now currently. It is not ironed out whatsoever, and that's reflective of what the market is willing to pay for these cards. So I think with Tag, you really have to look at the card and identify, hey, is this truly a very clean copy of the card, or is it not? Is there something that the machine missed, specifically as it relates to some of the older like vintage cards and things like that? So, at the end of the day, I wish Tag nothing but the best, and I hope they get it ironed out. I just right now I'm not touching it. I've also seen a ton of junk slabs come through Tag, which I despise. The idea of like getting a 13-cent card graded, wrapping it, and then putting it in a mystery product, like it's my least favorite thing about the hobby. And Tag has been doing that relentlessly, and so I have a bone to pick with them about that, but that's not necessarily relevant to, what should I use Tag or not? I just personally don't like that. Next, we'll go to CGC. CGC is one that I know a lot of people like. I personally have graded with CGC. I did not have a good experience whatsoever. Irrelevant to the grade side of things. The cards took forever. It was relatively expensive. I was not overly impressed with the customer service. And really it came down to like a time frame type thing. Like the cards took months and months and months to get back to me, when in reality I think they were like 75 days late. This was not during a boom. This was not during any dramatic like increase in supply coming into the ecosystem. This was when someone was doing a mystery product, a box that had a bunch of CGC cards in it, very similar to what we just talked about with Tag, that was full of junk, BS, worthless cards that were getting graded by CGC and being put into mystery products. I had a submission there, and I'm watching this, the CGC like marketing material of these warehouses full of cards that they're grading and they're putting into these boxes. I'm like, dude, my submission is like 2 months late. Like, where are my cards? Like, I paid way more than these people did. I would guarantee it. Like, where the hell are my cards at? In addition to the fact that CGC cards are not going to sell for a premium. The only time you're going to get any sort of edge over a PSA 10 is in some certainties where you get a pristine 10, which is nice, right? That's a cool idea, right? I can get behind the pristine 10, but that's the only time you're going to get an advantage over, PSA, for example, and that's not even guaranteed. A lot of times the PSA 10 will sell for more than a CGC pristine 10, and a CGC traditional 10 is certainly going to sell for less than a PSA 10. So the market value just isn't there for me, in combination with the fact that I've just had poor experiences. The cherry on top for CGC is that as of late, they've graded and verified some fake Pokemon cards. They came out of one of the creators of Pokemon, who apparently this guy said hey, they're real. He signed some. They got them all graded. It ended up being a scam. They were all printed within the last 12 months, but CGC authenticated them. CGC said, hey, yes, these are from 1996. These cards are almost 30 years old, when in reality, they were not even a year old. And the fact that they couldn't distinguish that just really invalidates CGC as a whole to me. I would not, even for a pristine 10, I would be worried for some of these cards that they don't see a ton, like these, maybe the 2023 Pro or 2022 D23 promos, some of these trophy cards, even a regular enchanted. I don't know if CGC has taken the time to truly authenticate these. Now, I know this happens with every grading company. There have been fakes that have been graded with every grading company, but the fact that something that historic happened with CGC, this thing's supposed to be 30 years old. It's actually only 6 months and they didn't identify it. That's absurd to me. That is irreprehensible. Can't fathom it. So that just killed CGC if there was anything left in me for CGC. Next, and we'll say the last major grading company, BGS or Beckett, they are typically known for their black label or their pristine 10 label. Now, the thing about BGS is their price typically is a little bit higher, but the market, which I don't necessarily agree with, but the market very much appreciates their grades, we'll say. So if you're able to get a pristine 10 or a Beckett black label 10, the multiplier on that card is going to be significantly higher than a PSA 10, a CGC pristine 10, CGC or BGS 10s, pristine 10s, and black label 10s just command a significant market premium for whatever reason. I do not buy those cards, right? So don't come at me. I'm just telling you the facts of a card. If you have a PSA D23 2022 Elsa versus a pristine 10, the pristine 10 at BGS is going to sell for probably, if this card's an $8,000 card, this card is probably a $10,000 card. If you have a black label, there's probably someone willing to pay $20,000 for it. It's that significant because the population counts are so low. That means, and for those of you who are not familiar, the black label means this is a perfect card. The corners are perfectly cut. The edges have no wear on them. They were cut with a sharp blade. The surface is impeccable. There's no hollow scratches. There's nothing wrong with the surface, and it is centered to a crisp. It is perfectly aligned across the board, front and back. There's no issues with the centering. So that is what a black label 10 is, and you're going to get the most premium out of those cards of any grading in the market. So that is what BGS has going for it. I've graded a lot with BGS. I don't necessarily mind BGS, but they've got their own flaws. For example, if you don't get a pristine 10, then it's not even going to... The BGS 9.5, the Gem Mint grade, which is the same grade for PSA, you're not even going to get a PSA 10 value out of it because it says BGS 9.5, even though technically the grading parameters were the same for those two grades. A PSA 10 is more valuable than a BGS 10 and the BGS 9.5, and the likelihood that you're going to get a BGS pristine 10 or a BGS black label 10 are very, very minimal. And so once again, that's where it comes back to PSA for me, the most consistent, the most widely accepted, and at the end of the day, that's just where I think the market is, and so that's why I would use them as a consumer of the grading. BGS also has they've graded some shenanigans in the past. The owner has lawsuits going on of billions of dollars of fraud and all sorts of different, I think insurance scams and stuff like that, is what he's being alleged of doing. And so they've got their own things. Who knows if they're even going to be around in a few years. But they do have a long track record. They're very big in Texas, and BGS has decades of history, behind them grading trading cards and sports cards. So that's kind of my overall thoughts of the grading market right now. This PSA 6 to a 10 is a disgrace. It should never happen. But things like tag, it is not perfect yet. There are a lot of cards to get 10s that are not 10s, and it's the AI is right now it's as flawed as a PSA grader who's grading 5 cards every 5 seconds. There's no perfect world right now as it relates to grading, and so I would say if you're gonna grade, my suggestion, just as a blanket, would be PSA. But once again, I have more detailed videos on my channel of why I would grade with a certain company for certain cards. Like one example I'll just give you right now. PSA is not touching my vintage Pokemon. I will be grading with BGS from here on out as it relates to vintage Pokemon, because PSA has been burned a lot on their insurance policy on having to pay out on vintage Pokemon, whether it's they were grading cards that were fake, or cards were damaged, etc. They've had to pay out a lot of money on those, and it's my opinion that they are grading those cards significantly harder than what they used to do. And so, like, I would even be willing to pay more for a PSA 10. I'm not buying them, so I guess I'm kind of saying this tongue in cheek. But a new cert PSA 10 vintage Pokemon card versus an old cert, I feel like should have like some sort of like BGS pristine 10 like additional value to it or multiplier to it, because some of the old cards, like, they're just not as clean that are PSA 10s that if you submit that same card now, it would not get a 10. I've even done examples of this myself. I bought a PSA 9 first edition Dark Magneton from Team Rocket through ZNG Emporium. It was a 9. I got it. I was like, dude, this card is like beat up. Like, how did this get a 9? I was just curious. The card was like $100 card anyway. I cracked it, regraded it. It got a 7. So it's just like, yeah, like this is absolutely insane. Like, that card was nowhere near a 9. It was in an old label, old cert. It had been graded years ago, and it was just an illustration to me of how much the standards had changed. I think that card really is a 7, and it got a 7. It was never supposed to get a 9, but I just think their parameters of vintage cards and more valuable cards have gotten a lot stricter. And so for cards like that, I would not touch PSA. But for anything Lorcana, I would definitely go the PSA route, unless I think it was incredibly clean and it might have a chance at a black label or a BGS Pristine 10. I might go that route. Other than that, I'm not touching tag and I'm not touching CGC. But that could change in the future. Like, I really do hope tag does well. I hope that they get the software figured out, and I hope that they're able to break through, because I think competition is good. I think if they push PSA to get, into that game of like some sort of, just like machine in the LGS, they could grade cards on the spot. It's got a cheap barrier to entry. Like, I think that would be good for the market overall. So I wish tag nothing but the best, but they are not touching my cards right now. They can keep grading their 10-cent junk slabs that just infuriate me. Absolutely insane. I guess I'll leave you with, I've seen a ton of people like, hey, I submitted at the 10 business day turnaround period. My cards haven't even been graded yet. It's been 30 days. Like, what's going on? And I've seen a lot of those comments. And when I see those comments, it reminds me of CGC when my cards were sitting there that I had to pay $13 a card for. They're overdue by 60 to 90 days. But I'm seeing all these warehouses of CGC junk slabs, cards that should not be encased in plastic, just being pumped out. And I'm just sitting there like, what the hell is going on? I see the exact same route with tag. It's like a box of 7 mystery tag slabs, and it'll be a Japanese, EX from a modern Pokemon set that is literally like a quarter, and it'll be a tag 10. And I'll be like, okay, like, why is this card getting graded? This card has no value. It's not worth $1. Like, what are we doing here? Like, absolutely insane. If you want to do something like that for your PC, that's fine. That's your discretion. But if they're doing this for a mystery product, they know that card is worthless, and they're going to leverage it into some 7-card box mystery product. Like, just disgraceful. I hate it. It's my least favorite part about the hobby is the graded mystery box junk slab. Like, just absolutely infuriates me. So I'll end on that rant there. Please let me know your thoughts, and we'll be back with another video soon. Bye.